Robert. He was a small baby, probably 8, 9 months old. And of course then, you know, you would burn a stove with wood. And during the night it would kind of die off. So in the morning she would get up early and she would, you know, put wood in the stove. And one day she took her and put Bobby in the high chair and put it right next to the stove, and she went to make her bed because the bedroom was right next to the kitchen bed. And smart Bobby got up from his chair, landed flat on the hot stove.
Wow.
All of this burnt. All of that burnt.
Now, did they take me to the hospital?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Did they take any skin from my body and, you know?
No, they put stuff on it and it just healed, you know.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how old do you think he was at that time?
About 8 or 9 months.
About 8 or 9, so he was very, very young.
Yeah.
As I remember Joe, he was more or less for me my idol, because when I went into high school in 1951, he had graduated in 1949. And all the teachers knew him, the coaches knew him, and everything. And they kind of, when they found out I was his brother, that's when they came after me to, you know, to join the football team and the baseball team and everything, okay, like he did. But of course they found out I wasn't like he was.
He was all the opposite.
Yeah, they kept telling me if your brother Fern was here, oh boy, he'd really get mad at you, because, I mean, you know,
So you recall your brother Joe, in your eyes, was your hero at that time?
Oh, he was always my hero, because he was like 2 or 3 years older than me.
Yeah.
But I was like following in his footsteps, even though I didn't do what he did.
Yeah.
But, you know, he was like my idol. Okay.
He went into the Air Force, you went into the Air Force.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and then when I was in the Air Force, I was getting discharged in 2 weeks. The commander of the base came to me and he says, here's a letter, look it over and come back at 9 o'clock the next morning. So I went back to him the next morning. There was a letter asking me to re-enlist. And I told him I wasn't going. So what he did, he checked around and found out Fern was in Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. He sent me to school there for 2 weeks. Called up Fern and told him to convince me to re-enlist. But Fern couldn't do that because I didn't want to re-enlist.
He was your hero, but you had to draw the line someplace.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to draw a line there someplace.
Uncle Bob, you were in the Air Force. Uncle Ray, you were in the Air Force too.
Yeah.
Both you were in the Air Force. You want to tell us a little bit about those years and the years after that?
Well, when I got out of high school, I didn't know what to do, so Mr. and Mrs. Stewart kind of got a little upset at me because of the way I went into the service. I didn't tell them I was going into the service, and I graduated on a Sunday night, and I was supposed to leave that Monday morning to go in the service, and I was going to tell them before I left on Monday morning. But Yvette found out by going down the street to the store to get it. Well, she was going down to get her mail on Saturday, and somebody stopped her and told her I was going in the service tomorrow night. So she came back home. She was kind of upset because I didn't tell her the day before, okay, or a week before, or something like that. Well, anyways, I went into the Air Force and I went to school. And they sent me to school for a couple of years, and that's why they wanted me to re-enlist to get some time out of me because they sent me to school for so long. But I was a teletype and quick to repairman, and I spent some time in Guam and Japan and Louisiana and Wyoming and St. Louis. That's the places that I was stationed at. And I kind of liked it in the service because it went by real fast for me, okay, 4 years. But I didn't want to re-enlist, so I didn't re-enlist. So I came back home thinking I would get a job right off, but nobody wanted to take my experience that I had in the service, so I had to go to technical school for 2 years. And then I got a job with Raytheon after that, so I moved to Maine and stayed up there for a couple of years, and then they moved to California, so I went to work for a company up in Waltham, and stayed there only about 6 months, but then I saw the writing on the wall they were going to close down, so I went to work for another company in Lawrence, Mass, ITT, and stayed with them for 18 years, and
Yeah, wow.
And tell them how many times that they make you make your bed.
oh, when I was in the service, yeah, of course, when I was in the service, I had never made a bed before, so I didn't know how to make a bed, so, you know, they told me I had to make my bed, and they didn't like the way I made my bed, so the guy, when I went into service, I never knew I was going to get in with colored people. I had never seen colored people. So I went on a bus to go on basic training in New York at that time, and here's some colored people they're picking up, and I'm saying to myself, what the heck have I got myself into? And I came off the bus at 6 o'clock in the morning in New York, didn't sleep all night long, thinking, you know, what the heck have I got myself into now? And then the drill instructor came over for about 5 minutes, screaming and yelling at us, just teaching us how to do a right face, and then told us to do a right face, and everybody turned right except me. I turned left. So he kind of got upset at me and came up to me and put his nose right up to my face and asked me where I was from. And I told him I was from my mother. So he got more upset then, you know, and everybody started laughing. So then we went back to the barracks, and he gave me a wooden gun and told me I had to take care of the latrine all night long. So I had to march in the latrine all night long with a wooden gun because of what I had told him.
You got some funny stories.
Well, that was my entry to the service. Basic training, okay. I almost went AWOL a couple of times because I figured that I don't belong here.
Yeah.
But I got to like it after, and you know, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you spent how many years in the Air Force?
4 years.
4 years in the Air Force.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let's see, your brother Rainey
Yeah.
married Doris Maines,
Yeah.
and you ended up marrying Doris's sister. Is that correct?
Yeah. Doris' sister Perth. That
Yeah.
was. You know, I married her, and after I got out of technical school.
And Aunt Teresa married Aunt Dot's brother, Walter.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah. And Janine almost married the other brother,
That's right.
Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost all in the same family.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And you and Bertha never did you have children?
No, she couldn't have any children.
Yeah.
But we adopted, you know, Timmy and Cindy, okay?
Yeah.
While we were married together, we adopted both of them, okay? And then we got divorced, and then I married somebody else, and then I got divorced again, and then I married somebody else, and that person died on me. And now
Now you got a girlfriend.
now I got a girlfriend that tells me I'm not clean enough, so I But you know, that's the story of my life.
But now you're retired.
Yeah,
And you live part of your time in Dornick and part of your time in Florida now, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I don't know, Bob, you know, there's sometimes in this family that there's some doubt whether you really belong to this family.
Well, you know, I questioned that.
Probably the milkman's son.
Yeah. Well, I questioned that once with Florence because I was up to your house down in Sulla. We were celebrating something, and I asked Florence, you know, I says, please explain to me and my family, from the oldest one to the youngest one, who they took after, their mother or father. And she had no problem starting with Teresa, and she went right straight down. But when she got to me, she kind of
Hesitated?
She hesitated and she stopped. And she says, I don't know who you take after. So I says, well, I says, maybe I take after the guy that was the Undertaker.
Yeah.
I said, I don't know.
Well, like they say, they slow and they slower And there's Robert Terry. That's what his boss used to tell him.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. And also, my brother Randy told me once, he says, you know, I told him I never had high blood pressure. And he said, well, that's because you don't move fast enough.